Okay, another day. Time to get to work in the shop. I'm going to a craft fair this weekend actually, and I'm making a bunch of cheese cutting boards. Here's some that I have just about done. And I bought the hardware, I'll put a link in the description down below, from cheeseslicing.com. That's going to be hard to remember. I found these cheese slicers for $4.45 each. That's pretty cheap. I will put a link to the part number and the website in the description. But what we need to do, the way these work, is that this goes in here. The wire attaches to the rod that goes through, and the other side goes onto the other side. And then you flip it. There we go. Then you flip it so that it closes. A little adjustment there. And then these cut your cheese. So I have these boards made. I am assuming that you could make a cutting board. I cut pieces and glued them together. I made this one with a handle. Thought that was a little different and cool. And I just used a whole bunch of different pieces of wood, styles, designs. I gotta say, the cutting boards are supposed to be an easy project. I spend a lot of time deciding the patterns, cutting different pieces of wood, figuring out the widths that I want. Like this one, every piece is exactly 1/8 of an inch larger than the one before it. Something kind of cool. I thought I'd give it a shot. This one I had, this piece of ash was a solid piece. I didn't like the way it looked, so I ripped it down the middle and stuck a piece of Brazilian cherry in there. Fancy. So I rounded the corners with my little template, and I just made a 1/2 inch rounded corner. And now I'm going to need to drill this hole in the top. This hole here. To accept the rod for the hardware. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to go over to the drill press and do that, and then we'll round off these corners with a small round over bit, give it a coat of walnut oil, and then I like to finish my cutting boards with a coat of walnut oil, maybe 2, and then I just buff them with beeswax. Gives them a nice shine, makes them show. So I'm going to set up the drill press and I'll bring you over there. Okay, so I got the drill press set up. I am about 1/2 inch in from this side and a little less than halfway down the thickness of the piece of wood, and I'll explain that when we cut them at the table saw. So I'm going to go in about 3 7/8. And you can see I got this set up. I just have a wood clamp clamped down to my vise, and I back this piece all the way up to the pin that's in here so that they're always that. You see how I got that just a little bit off center? That's because we need to cut down a groove for the wire to go through, and it has to be just below the hole. So if we cut down too far, then it makes it too weak and it could break this way. Okay, so I just finished drilling these holes, and I want to mention a couple things that you might want to think about. Because this hole needs to be a little off center, it needs to be closer to the face of the board. You want to make sure that when you drill it, you take that into consideration so that you don't end up drilling and having the wrong face forward. I don't like this one. I would have liked to have had on the other side. I used a 7mm drill bit. It's the same one that I use for like my pens and stuff. And I used it because it's a little bit bigger than the steel rod that's going through, and it's long. Because I need that 4 inches because I got to get it down to here. The other thing that you want to think about when you're making these are 5 inches wide. The length doesn't matter. These aren't the same length at all. But they're all 5 inches wide, and the reason is because you need to have the space for that to come down on here. So it looks like I could go maybe 1/4 of an inch bigger, but 5 inches is a nice round number. So that's what I do. So now we're going to go to the table saw and cut this slit. We're going to cut this slit right here in the table saw. Okay, so I have my hole, so I'm going to cut the slit here because it's closer on this side. And I'm setting my blade so that it's I'm going to set my blade so it's just above the top of the hole. So I'm just going to check that, and I'm actually going to check it on all of them because I didn't exactly measure them. This one's good. And I have the fence set at 3.5 inches. So I'm just going to push this through and this one's done. When you're cutting these, the hole that you drilled should be in the bottom right corner of the table. Okay, so you see how I have, I don't know, maybe 3/16 of an inch of there? It always makes me nervous that these are just going to break. This is all hardwood. I think the softest wood I used was walnut. But you can't see it, but I can see that the hole goes all the way through the slice I just made with the table saw blade. I have a thin blade, but it doesn't make any difference. Okay, to route these edges, I just have a very small roundover bit mounted in the table. I like to use this bit for really all the cutting boards that I use. It makes a nice, easy profile. You could just do it with sandpaper, but I like using tools because it's a very small curve that it puts on there. You'll see in a second. As a comparison, this is my nice sharp edge. So I'm going to route that and then I'll show you the difference. Okay, so now I just have that little bit of a roundover on there, and I didn't have to do any sanding, even though I got to still finish sand it. Okay, so I got these all sanded. I used 150 and then 220, and now I'm rubbing a nice coat of walnut oil on these. If you haven't tried this Mahoney's Finishes Utility Finish walnut oil, it is awesome. Really helps bring out the beauty of the wood and the grains, and it gives it a nice seal coat. So while I have your attention, we're putting some oil on. I've been doing some thinking. I've been pretty impressed that I only had, a month, I guess maybe a little over 2 months of making these videos, and I got, I don't know, a dozen of them on the YouTube. And I got 100 subscribers, and I'm kind of impressed, and it's kind of exciting to see that interest, and apparently you guys want to watch what I'm doing, and I want to show you. But I see all these guys, and they have all these sponsors, and you know, they're sponsored by Milwaukee or Powermatic or Jet or X-Carb's giving them a CNC machine. I want to be sponsored by like Mrs. Fields. How about a nice cookie? Wouldn't it be nice to have a nice pile of cookies here? Or Omaha steaks? Yeah. Send me a few steaks, I'll review those, no problem. Sure, it's a woodworking show and we should be discussing tools, but there isn't a man or woman out there that wouldn't like a nice cookie now and then. Whoa! Okay, these are the last 5 that are going to get, that I have to make. I made 10 altogether. So this is just going to set, and then I'll show you how I buff them with the beeswax and finish them up, and we'll attach all that hardware. This is an awesome project, isn't it? Are you having fun? I'm having fun. Okay, it's time to buff these cutting boards. They've all got a couple coats of walnut oil on them. So now I'm just going to buff them with my buffing wheel with some beeswax on it. So I'll show you how to do that. This is the beeswax. You just get this online. You just rub it on here. I'll spin it real quick. That's it. Alright, so that's all I do for the cutting boards, no matter if they're cheese cutting boards or regular cutting boards. This buffing wheel is part of the Beal Bowl buff system, which I really, really like. Once I got that thing, I use it for way more than just bowls. Anything that I can fit on here to put a finish on, it comes out awesome. The wheel that I'm using for the beeswax is the white diamond wheel, and the difference between the 3 wheels, you get a Tripoli wheel, the white diamond wheel, and the wax wheel, and you'll see all this in the video that Mr. Beal does. But this one is harder, this one's a little bit softer, and this one's the softest. So when I chose the one for the beeswax, I just went in the middle. I figured best of both worlds. So that's all that I do to polish these up. So the next step that we need to do is put the hardware on, and then they're ready for the craft fair. Okay, so these cutting boards are all done, and like I was saying before, 5 inches wide, and that's your only real guideline. This space here is 3.5, so those are 2 measurements that you're going to need to know. And the hole that I drilled at the top is above center, and it's a 7mm hole, and it's about 1/2 inch in. So now, what happens with these parts, you have the arm, and you have the wire with a little handle on it. The arm slides into the hole, and then there's a little loop on the end of the wire, and that loop needs to go around the bar, and then the handle slides onto here, and you just flip it to tighten it up. This one's a little crooked, so we just make a little adjustment and push it in until it gets straight. There we go, perfect. So that is one completed cheese cutting board. Very nice gift. Oh, there's one more thing. There's also a little set screw. There's a set screw that goes underneath the handle, and there's a little hole in the bar that it screws into, and that holds everything together. So now it's completed. So that's one. I got 9 more to do here, or 10 more to do. I don't know. I made some cheese boards. Want to see how I did it? Come on, let's go for an adventure. Adventure time. I don't know how to drill this one with the handle. And now, I'm rolling a nose. What the?